Back to the Soul Canvas podcast. This is the place to be possible. And I am your host, Jennifer Madsen, and we talk each episode about the lives of people around the world and how those lives changed, how they became more possible, impactful, visionary by saying yes. There's usually a transition that gets to a yes, that gets to a transformation. And today's guest is with us to talk about a very intense transformation. Courtney Doll is our guest today. She's a certified trauma-sensitive somatic coach and certified core centering practitioner. We'll find out more about that. Courtney is dedicated to transforming the way that we approach healing and growth. And I'm so excited to have Courtney on the show today. When we spoke about the possibility, I was so intrigued by how much energy and love from a very difficult conversation around IBD, irritable bowel disease, which I'm going to ask for more distinctions around that versus other things that people might be challenged with, and how you came to this place. So welcome, Courtney. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm genuinely so excited to be here and to have this conversation with you. I love the mission of your podcast. And, our stories are so powerful, and both sharing our own and hearing them from other people. So I'm excited to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you. And when I sent out the word for podcast guests, and there are lots of people who will respond to those sorts of things, but following through is a whole different thing, right? And I find, not to fault anybody else, I find that those who do follow through have a very clear picture of the story that I'm talking about. Like the the fork in the road, the pivot point, the whatever that led to the yes, that led to the transformation. And what you shared with me was that I think you said 2021, you started in the direction of becoming a coach to help people with irritable bowel disease. Let's go back before that. What was going on in your life?
Sure. So I'm going to go back all the way to when I was 14 years old. Actually, in 2004, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, a type of inflammatory bowel disease, which is IBD. It's different than irritable bowel syndrome, and we can go into that later if you like. But I was diagnosed all the way at 14, and I immediately started implementing dietary protocols, doing peer-reviewed research, searching the internet, printing out articles and taking them.
Wait a second, 14, you're doing peer review?
Well, I was looking up peer-reviewed research.
But I mean, you're like diving into research at that age.
Yeah.
My immediate assumption is that you're 14 and you're like, oh, screw this. I don't want this.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
But you dove into it and you started getting some answers.
Well, I tried to get some answers, and I found some information that diet played a role in the condition. I took that information to my doctors at AI DuPont Children's Hospital, like one of the best places to be. And they were like, nah, diet doesn't play a role. And I was like, what? Huh? So I ended up being put on some really intense medications, and that pushed me to study chemistry. Long story, really short, over 20 years, I slowly stacked up diagnoses, more symptoms, more like pain and misery, despite doing all the things. I was taking medication, I was taking supplements, I was practicing mindfulness, I was meditating, I was exercising, I was doing it all, and still continually getting sicker. It wasn't getting better.
What were the other diagnoses?
Well, so Crohn's disease, and then fibromyalgia was a big one, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos, a rare skin condition called hidradenitis suppurativa, which is related to the Crohn's disease, eczema, depression, anxiety, a bunch of other things. And I also experienced symptoms of conditions that I never received diagnoses for, because by the time I was like I was just over it. So I experienced symptoms of POTS and mast cell activation syndrome, like a lot of nervous system dysregulation type of things, and
Huh.
IBS. So IBD and IBS.
Holy moly. And all along the way, you're trying to do all the things to treat all the things.
Yeah.
And was there a breakthrough at some point of like, not this, now that, and look, I have new results?
The biggest breakthrough was when I was diagnosed with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. I was 32 years old. A doctor walked in, shook my hand, asked me a few questions, and was like, "This is what you've got." And I'm like, "How did you know that?" And he explained all of the things that pointed to that and was like, and then just like basically offered this to me. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh my gosh, this explains so much of my life.
What is Ehlers-Danlos? I've heard of it, but I haven't heard about it.
It's
Yeah.
a connective tissue disorder where the connective tissues, so like tendons, fascia, cartilage, muscles in the body are stretchier. They have a
Mm,
different type of collagen in them than people who don't have this condition. So we're stretchier, we're bendy. Like you're not supposed to be able to do that. Like that's not normal
mm,
range of motion. Sorry. Yeah. Oh. Some people can have hypermobile joints, oh wow, but not have the experience of chronic
yeah, yeah.
symptoms. My mom is the
Wow.
one who has that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it affects not just the muscular skeletal system, but also the digestive system, the
Of
nervous
course.
system, because my brain doesn't really know where my body is in space because my range of motion is outside of what's expected. So my nervous system kind of has a baseline level of dysregulation from that.
What happened? Like you got the Ehlers-Danlos and you're like, okay, but I've been taking all the things, I've been doing all the things. What's the thing now?
Well, I started exercising. I started implementing all of the things for Ehlers-Danlos and all of that stuff, and got to a point where I was really fed up. There was
Wow.
just like things were not working, and I was scrolling on Facebook, and I found an ad for a coaching program for people with inflammatory bowel disease, and I was like, I'm not really struggling with this directly, but I need some help. It was a science-backed program, so I'm on board.
Hate for
And
science, by the way.
yes, yes. Because like I want the evidence-based protocols, supplements, medicine. Like I don't want to waste my time and money on things that aren't like that don't at least have some evidence of working. So I reached out to this guy, had the admissions call, and like I was already sold before the admissions call, right? But it was a high ticket coaching offer. And at the time, I was in a marriage where our finances were shared. And I went to him and was like, this, I want to do this. I'm miserable. Like I was considering stopping working at this point.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet. I mean, I can't imagine being in that level of pain 24/7.
I lived at a 7 out of 10 on like the pain scale. Like that was my
All
daily
the
existence.
time. Wow.
All the time. And I was like, I want to do this. This is what's going to help me. And he said no.
Mm,
So I went to my mom and borrowed money from my mom, or it was a gift actually, and signed up for the program and dove in. And in one of the prompts, it asked me specifically, like, who's your support system? And I was
mm,
like, no one. I don't have one. I'm married and I don't have one. I'm in a
wow.
family, but I didn't feel supported. It really helped me to take a look at my environment and really see it clearly for the first time.
Wow. I'm like, whew, that one got me.
Yeah.
How old were you at that time?
See, that was 2022. So I was 32.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got into that program. And by the way, congratulations. I said to somebody the other day that I'm 40 years older than you. I've spent probably $100,000 on my self-education outside of college in the 30 years that I've been an entrepreneur and the 20 some odd I've been a coach. and stepping up to those things that a lot of people don't understand. Is he the ex-husband?
Yes, he is.
The ex-husband, the husband, as my friend says.
Ooh.
Is that an interesting phrase, right? The husband. Many people don't understand the investment of that, and sometimes it's not I've out of that 100,000, I've spent stuff that did not bring the return that the other things did, but 98% of them did. So tell me about the journey then into this coaching program and how your life changed.
Right. So I followed the prompts, I attended the group coaching calls, I asked the questions. I found it all kind of like overwhelming and like foggy. I was also, I was experiencing a lot of brain fog anyway.
Imagine.
But I cleaned up my diet and then I ran into roadblocks with implementing the diet that I knew was best for me as far as like roadblocks in my relationship, like
How so?
financially. I wanted to spend more money on higher quality food
Yeah.
and that wasn't accepted. And then there were different ways I wanted to live my life. I didn't want to sleep with the TV on in my bedroom at night, but
Right.
he did. There
Mhm.
were like so many different things, like clarity of just like, I am not in an environment that's conducive for my body's healing.
Yeah. How
So
hard was that? Come to
it
that
was
realization.
It was difficult, and it took actually several years for me to really come to that realization. It's just that being in this program kind of held up a mirror to it. Was like, you can't ignore this anymore.
Right.
So in April of 2022, I ordered a Kali Oracle deck, not knowing anything about like kind of the spirituality realm. Like my therapist was just like, I think you should look into the goddess Kali. And I'm like, okay. And
Okay.
Googled and
It's
found a
probably the
Kali.
last thing left on the list.
It
If we're being
was.
honest, right? Like you've done all the things.
Yeah.
I
So I ordered this Kali Oracle deck, and I'm just
love
like,
it.
I don't know what this is going to do. I don't know what an Oracle deck is, but okay.
Yeah.
And it arrived. I pulled my first card. I read the description, and I was like, I don't, I don't under, what's that going to do?
Yeah.
2 weeks later, it was a Saturday. I called my therapist, and I was like, I'm leaving. I need help making a plan.
Yeah.
And like I didn't call my therapist, like how like they tell you like anything. Like I never did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um and so she was like like I felt her relief on the other end of the phone of just like, oh my God, thank goodness she finally got it. And within 2 weeks, I left my job of 10 years, my home, and my marriage.
That was in
Just
22 years ago.
2022. Yeah.
Where did you go?
I went and stayed with my sister 4 hours away, and then I stayed with my best friend, and then I stayed with more family before finally landing here in Florida.
Yeah. And hopefully the divorce kind of went the way it went. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's finalized. Actually, the year anniversary of the finalization was just a couple of weeks ago. I set myself up for the most success and also really just allowed myself to just let go of what was no longer mine.
Well, when I reached out in our shared group to look for podcast guests, and we talked about, is the place to be possible? Like, talk about the things that are possible when we say yes. You said yes to you. I mean, all of the things. And you've been saying yes to you since 14, probably before, in this giganto way, right? And so, in saying yes to you in the biggest possible way and changing the job and changing the marriage and changing all of those things, how was your health along the way with that? How was the IBD? How was the Ehlers-Danlos? How was all that?
Well, so right after I left my marriage, I was like, I dove full in to my health because that's why I left. My health was my number one priority. I started buying the food that was best for my body. I started cooking in a way that was best for my body. I actually started working for that coaching program that
Nice.
saved my life. And I started seeing a physical therapist with special knowledge in Ehlers-Danlos. I made a lot of big shifts, and I also developed an allergic reaction to the medication that was managing my IBD.
Yeah.
So I had to go off of it. And that that was a challenging experience because I was on that medication for a total of 10 years. And that coming off of it kind of abruptly as a result of an allergic reaction really caused a lot of disruption to my
I'm
system. So
sure.
I actually, it got worse. It got worse before it got better. The
Often does. Whatever it
Ehlers-Danlos,
is, it often does.
yeah. But a year after I left everything, and I was in the coaching program that that I earned my certification from, I was no longer in daily pain. I was off of my depression medication. I stopped smoking weed for like numbing purposes.
I'm sure.
My digestion had significantly improved. There wasn't nearly the amount of inflammation in my body. When I got to Florida, I was wearing braces on my knees, my ankles, my hands, my elbows, and those had all come off. I was using a cane
Wow.
sometimes. Then I became strong enough that all of those things could fall away. Then I could really step into following my purpose and passion and drive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the passion, purpose, and drive. You may or may not know, because I know we don't know each other except through our social contacts, that my Soul Canvas coaching program is for women of vision. So visionary women making ever greater impact in the world by their gifts, by their innate gifts, talents, things they've grown into, things they've come to realize about themselves, wherever that showed up. And I can tell from talking to you that you are living into that. You didn't just choose to be a coach because it was a cool thing to do and you might make some money at it. You're really clearly in a process, Courtney, where you are supporting people in a way that only you can.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that reflection.
absolutely. And so tell me more about what that looks like then for someone who comes to you and they say, I have these challenges as well. And it's so interesting. I was thinking a moment ago, you haven't gotten into the specifics of like the food that worked, but you've qualified it, the food that worked for your body, the things that worked for your body. I get the sense that this is not a one size fits all kind of deal.
No, it's not. Because every body is different. It has different biochemistry. There's different microbes in their gut. Like there's different concentrations of different neurochemicals, different hormones. So
Mhm.
every body is going to respond differently to different foods, medicines, supplements, etc. It's really difficult to generalize
Sure.
the peer-reviewed science, which most peer-reviewed science has only been done on men. It hasn't been done on women.
It's so
And
interesting.
our hormones influence the way our body responds throughout our cycle to different foods. So, no, it's not a one size fits all approach. And it's very much about helping my clients connect back into their body. We're taught from a really young age to disconnect, that, we have to raise our hand to go to the bathroom. I went to a school that didn't allow us to have water bottles with us all
No,
day,
yeah, we didn't have them. Yeah.
right? So we were taught to ignore our bodily needs, like the basic bodily functions, which extends further to ignoring our own boundaries, ignoring our desires. Most of us don't even know what it is that we desire and want out of our lives because we've
True
kind of
story.
been given a blueprint
Yeah.
of what's correct, go to
Yeah.
college, make the money, find the husband, buy the house, have
Yep.
the kids. And
Ta-da.
that doesn't work for me.
Yeah, no. So what is somatic coaching?
So, somatic coaching takes on a lot, like, there's a lot of different types of somatic coaches. And my particular type of somatic coaching is a bottom up, so body based approach, as well as top down based approach. So, we're hitting things from both directions, involving the intellectual mind and the body, getting the entire being on board and working with the subconscious patterns that are keeping us sick and stuck and unable to move forward in
Yeah,
lives.
that's wonderful. And what are some of the results that you've seen for you, for your clients?
Well, I shared a little bit of my results. So I have seen clients go from being labeled as defensive in the workplace and kind of like off-putting and difficult to work with to being like exalted and appreciated and like, oh my gosh, wow, what a transformation. Like being able to show up as like grounded and centered and present and in their power,
Yeah,
still advocating for themselves and the people they're working with, but without the armor on that's often kind of taken as defensiveness and aggression.
sure.
That's been a big one. I'm working with a 70-year-old client right now who is just, she's like, I'm taking my life back. It's been 70 years of giving myself away. And she feels so much more powerful. She's more present in the moment. She's able to be there with her grandchildren to a greater extent. She's still working. She's a realtor and she's like kicking butt and helping her agents so much because she's able to be in her body and aware
Yeah,
of what's happening.
it's so interesting too. I grew up studying to be a professional dancer, and body image thing, frankly, then and now in the industry was not healthy. We weren't really seen as athletes the way dancers are now, right? We were dancers, and you had like cigarettes for lunch. You Jolly Ranchers were the afternoon snack. It was the most unhealthy environment because there was that standard of stickness that you had to aspire to if you were going to be given a second look. The industry has changed a little bit. I think you have people like, oh, who am I thinking of? Name is escaping me. Prima ballerina for the American Ballet Theater, who is muscular and healthy and strong and different. And you still have a lot of people who are putting themselves under horribly unrealistic expectations where their bodies are concerned. For me, what that looked like was an eating disorder, a complete disconnect from my body, sexually, emotionally, physically, mentally, the whole nine yards, where the fight with food was constant and probably, frankly, created some aggravations within my system that I don't know that ever qualified at the IBD or IBS level, but damn close, like not well, unwell. So it's so remarkable to hear your story of continuing one foot after the other, not only putting one foot in front of the other, Courtney, for you and your own health, but as I said in the beginning, also doing that on behalf of the people of all ages, clearly, that need to say yes to that next step for their lives. What is the thing they're afraid to say yes to? Like, what do they got? What's the first thing they have to get over?
Well, I mean, it's that people pleasing, right? It's showing up and doing for others. Yes, we want to do that. We want to do and give to the people we love and care about and our clients and all of that stuff. But we're often doing it from an empty cup.
Yeah,
And if we don't have a full cup, if we don't give to ourselves first, to choose to say yes to ourselves before saying yes to another, we can't show up and be that. And I'm continually reminded of this, of like when I skip my practices in the morning, I don't show up as great for my clients later in the day. I don't show up in the way that I desire to,
yeah. What are
right?
some of
And
those practices?
the primary ones are they're qigong based. It's gentle self-massage, movement, breathing, and meditation. And I practiced meditation, mindfulness meditation for years, and it was great. But the combination of the movement and breathing just gets me into a deeper state of presence with myself so that I can show up better for my clients and for my loved ones
Yeah.
for the rest of the day. Yeah.
What's the most joyous part of your life these days?
Oh, there's so many. I think the biggest thing is I have community for the first time in my life, like real, genuine, heart-led, safe community that understands that we're all sovereign. We all can say yes, and actually our no's are celebrated. So when I say no to something that you're asking me to do, they
Yeah.
understand that I'm saying yes to me.
And celebrate that for you and support that for you.
They
That's
do.
beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we're nearing the end of our time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you spending time with me today and sharing so honestly and forthrightly about your story. You've had some ups and downs for sure, and I admire you to pieces in terms of what you keep making of that experience for you and for others. So thank you for that. Any parting words for our listeners, viewers?
Ah, I wish I had thought about that beforehand. Just small, consistent steps in the direction you want to go is the fastest way to change.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Courtney. You're delightful, and I really appreciate the conversation. And listeners, viewers, of course, all of the information on how to find Courtney and all of her offers, all of her programs will be in the show notes for you. And any comments, any feedback for us, please let us know. Please subscribe, all of the good things, listeners. And we'll see you again very soon. Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks, Jennifer.